How are we, people?
So hopefully we're live because this is only the third time we've done a live, so you never know. But I'm Motty, that's Scotty, and joining us for a live stream is Mr. Trevor Dwyer-Lynch, who's going to be taking us through, even to get my words out, the wonderful year that was 1971.
Well, yeah, before we bring Trevor in, I just want to put a caveat that I know absolutely fuck all about the year 1971. Outside of Disneyland opened in that year.
Scotty told me before it was the year of the Pentagon Papers, in case anyone's wondering.
I just think you've just brought me on because your demographic is getting a bit older, aren't you? So he thought he needed an older bloke in it. Do you know what I mean?
We just wanted to feel young again, Trev. So
Scotty asked me in the summer. He said, "You coming on?" I went, "Yeah." Like 6 months later, I'm 6 months older. We're in lockdown.
We just wanted to wait until that pandemic took its toll on you, Trev.
No one's got to tell him. You know what I mean? Everybody's exhausted Netflix. They thought, yeah, I'll get this old fella on. He'll be a bit of a laugh.
That's not entirely true.
No. Caring the community, you two.
Listen, sounds like this. We've got to do our bit. So, no, honestly, well, we had you on for the election night special, didn't you? You lasted a lot longer than Scotty.
Yeah, he fell asleep, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to the toilet and didn't come back for.
Whoa! My daughter wakes up and has night terrors. And then I fell asleep. We're putting her back to sleep. That was the story I'm sticking to.
Sorry, I'm not having that story. Because I remember vividly you saying, "I'm in the house on alone, but somebody might be coming in a minute." That wouldn't be referring to your daughter, would it?
No.
There's a knock on the door, wasn't there, Jay? And then Scotty went, "I'm going to the loo."
Trying to stay awake
2 days. Yeah, that's my delivery to help me stay awake. Say no more.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't know what to shave, lads, you know what I mean. But it's my lazy lockdown. I'll wait till Christmas Eve and I'll have a shave.
Looking good anyway, as always, Mr. Dwyer-Lynch. You said 1971 because we get, as always, anyone who doesn't know the show, we get guests on and we ask people. Name a year, talk us through a year that was special to you, talk us through the music of that year, films, football, news, anything that happened that year that makes it a special one for you. And Trev, you chose 1971. And what was the reason behind that? Because you're a man who's led a colourful life and there's many years you could have chosen, not saying you're old, but you've seen a lot of exciting things during your time. That's all I'm going to say. So what was it about 1971?
That was my first ever Man United game.
Really?
So you got to remember as well, right? Like you said, we joke about half Moss Side, half Salford. I grew up in Moss Side, right? Went to the school, which was 20 metres across the road from Main Road. Ooh. Peter Barnes was one of my best mates, used to play football in the car park. But I was a United fan. Q, you asking me why?
Yeah. Why, mate?
Why?
You're business with Peter Barnes and you grew up in Moss Side near Main Road. What's going on there?
Well, here's a joke. So, I'm just getting into football. I'm 9 and 10, right? Just getting into football. And every year, the school had an agreement with Man City that a couple of kids would go over and get a ball signed, for the school fete. We used to have a school fete then to raise money, you know what I mean? Marcus Raffridge wasn't about. We didn't have anybody to speak on our behalf, you know what I mean? So we're at a school fete, right? So you go in and you get a ball autographed and meet the players and all that lot. So, like I say, you're 9 years of age. It was a buzz just getting into the football. I get chosen. Me and a girl go over with a teacher. I'm there, mate. I'm taking penalties against Ken Mulhern. All the City fans who watch this probably will know what Ken Mulhern. I met Neil Young, Colin Bell. City with a prominent side in this. You know what I mean? Them days. You know what I mean? But like I say, you're a young kid. You're 9. I've gone right round the stadium with him. He took me and this girl and the teacher right round, bit of a tour. And coming out, they used to have these massive steps. Those of you who are nostalgic, Jay, you'll remember. Scotty probably won't, but used to have at Main Road. You had these massive steps going up to the main entrance. You know, it was quite grandiose, a bit Wembley type thing. Do you know what I mean? So we were coming down the stairs, and this player was coming up the stairs, and the kid who was showing us around was a young apprentice, and he said to the player, Mr. So-and-so, because you have to call him Mr. then, Mr. So-and-so, could you sign the ball, please, for these kids? And he went, fuck off, I've no time for that. So you're 9, right? Imagine this, you're 9, you've just been to this thing, you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden, you come from like Everest to like Eaton Park Hill. Do you know what I mean? You're like, the teacher obviously had words with him. He started having a go at the teacher.
Gee.
Anyway, so we go back to school. Teacher then obviously like give us a letter. You got to tell your parents there's been an incident and they're going to be reported and after we're happy. So that weekend, I go to Salford. That's when my gran and granddad lived, right? So my granddad, big 6'2", ex-Navy man. So my mum says to him, tell your granddad where you went. And I went, I went to City to get a ball signed for the school, granddad. And Salford used to go Shitty City. That was the thing, Shitty City, you know what I mean? He went, you what? You went to Shitty City? I went, yeah. She said, tell him what happened. And I'm like, you're 9, aren't you? You can't swear. You're just not allowed back in them days. I said, oh, you said a naughty word. So my mum obviously mouthed. He told him to. So my granddad went, yeah. And he gave me a United programme, right? Because he was always at United. He gave me a United programme. And from that day, I was the only red in my school, probably in the whole of Moss Side. No, there was 2 of them. The kid who took me to the game was a kid called Johnny Williams, who lived round the corner. My first game was Tottenham. I seen the great bestie, Lob Pat Jennings, just inside the box, mate. We won 2-1. Willie Morgan scored, and bestie. Mad that, innit?
Yeah.
So then 15 years later, when I'm playing, I used to play part-time pro. So I'm playing football for Stockport County, and we're playing Preston in the Cheshire Cup. And Asa Hartford is a big close mate of mine, right? So we go to the game, we get beat, I think, something like that. But afterwards, the player who told me he was the manager of Preston. But him and Asa were top mates because they played at City together, right? So we're having the banter in the players' lounge, as you do. And he goes, Trev, say hello to so-and-so. And I went, yeah, all right. And he said, and I already told Asa this story. And he went, Trev, tell him why you don't support City. I'm like, and I told him. And do you know what? To be fair to the kid, he was absolutely gutted. He was gutted. He was like so apologetic. You know, because obviously you can understand I'm 9 years of age, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Put that to a kid. It's like anything. It's like, you know, I've seen stuff with people asking kids blokes for autographs, and they go, and that 9-year-old kid will probably hate that person for the rest of his life, or maybe stop supporting the team, or stop watching the telly, or do you know what I mean? So it was a big thing. And so he said, and he was like, to be fair, he was gutted, mate. He was gutted. And, you know, I mean, after we become quite all right, chatty lads, you know, every time I see him, he'd always acknowledge me. But he said, I don't know whether he was injured. I don't know whether he'd been sold, whether he'd been dropped. He can't remember. Obviously, he can't, you know what I mean? But, yeah, that was the reason why I support Man United, mate. My Salford side.
You should be quite thankful then, shouldn't you, really, that he told you to fuck off?
Yeah, I can't remember a trophy room going around there anyway when I was that age. No, but yeah, but you imagine, can't you? Oh, yeah. No, Moss Side, you're just like pure blues. Can I mind your car, mate? Mind your car, mate? Do you know what I mean? That lot, but yeah, mad that.
Yeah, no, I do remember Main Road back in the day, where it used to be like going into there. It's better than going there than it was to the Etihad nowadays. I always found Main Road was a better stadium for atmosphere and stuff. And when we were at high school, my best mate's Nathan, he had a job behind the bar there, so we always used to go down to Main Road just to jib in, get free beer at the age of 15, whatever, and watch the games and stuff. It was a good crack.
It was great. The thing we used to have like the social club, didn't they? Like most clubs had social clubs, didn't they? Attached to the side of the ground. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, you know, I remember like my aunties going in there and stuff like that on a Friday, or you'd go and play bingo or stuff like that. But yeah, I just thought, I mean, it was unique. It was unique Main Road, yeah, without a doubt. Do you know what I mean? It was, yeah.
Yeah. And they sold the soul, didn't they? When they got the money, all the sand money and stuff, and they're just a completely different club now. Corporate bastards, aren't they? Used to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of them, and I've got big mates with Blues, and we'd always just get stick because obviously, we what success we've gained and blah blah blah, and it was always a case of me, yeah, but we've earned ours. You've always been giving yours. You know what I mean? What's the matter with you? You know what I mean? Type of thing. And I said, carry on. You'll soon become corporate. You'll soon become all that prawn sandwich eaters, and fair enough, they are. You know what I mean? And my Blue mates who've been, like I say, they've been fans for 50 odd years. They hate it. You know what I mean? They're diehard like us, aren't they? They're diehard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So 1971 then, Trev. What's Moss Side like around them times?
You know what I mean? It was like most. It wasn't very different from probably other areas. If you think about it, it's quite interesting when people ask me about Moss Side, and they always presume it was a black area. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Basically, I would say the demographic was probably somewhat like 70-30 white to black back in them days. But the unemployment was probably about 25% of the black people were unemployed. You know what I mean? There was a high rate of unemployment. So, like, if you'd driven, the main drag was it from Ringway Airport, Wivenshaw, right through to town. So if you're driving through Moss Side, which you got to remember them times was a hive of activity, mate. It was like built up air, there was Woolworths, there was Alexandra Road, it was just on a Saturday, you go shopping with your mum and you meet all your mates. It was just, Princess Road was just buzzing with cars, you know what I mean? There was cinemas, there was all sorts of things. But the main drag was from like the airport into town. So if you're driving through and then suddenly you hit Moss Side and you're looking, you would see groups of obviously black people, do you know what I mean, on the corners because they were unemployed. And I think that's then became that label, it's a black area. So obviously we don't things evolved and white people moved out, more Caribbean people moved in. Do you know what I mean? But even now it's a circle. You're getting a lot of the student kids from London who've got the money because they can buy houses up there. It's cheaper. Do you know what I mean? And it's a circle. But listen, it was great, man. I mean, we've had this conversation with me and Jay before. You know what I mean? You had scraps in Moss Side with white kids. I grew up with white kids, Asian kids, Chinese kids. It was never racial. Do you know what I mean? It was never racial. The common denominator for us, Scotty, like anything, Salford, we were poor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were poor. Do you know what I mean? And I can never remember being called anything racist. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, apart from maybe the teacher. You know what I mean? But that was the rhetoric. Not saying it's right, but that was the rhetoric. You know what I mean? And I was watching that thing. Have you been watching that Small Axe on BBC?
I've not seen it yet. I know you pointed out to me, and I do want to watch it. But
so there's one. He takes clips of scenarios for black people, and one was like the music scene, Lovers Rock, and the last one was about education, and it was about how black kids or people from colour were put into a certain category, and if they were like I don't know, they might be a bit hyper, which today would be labelled ADHD or autistic and blah, blah, blah. It was like they're going to a special school. But a lot of them come from the Windrush. So when they said they go to special school, they thought they were going to, it's a special school. You know what I mean? It was obviously ESN, do you know what I mean? So we had teachers who were like that, who were bullies, mate. And, they could batter you in them days. They used to batter you. Do you know what I mean? They were like, your mum and dad's not like today. If you shout at a kid, you get reported. Do you know what I mean? They you would get battered, but you never faced any racism within Moss Side. It was when you came out, when you went into town. Like I said, my gran, you know what I mean, was like my mum. When I left up, she brought me up since I was about 10, 11. I left Moss Side, but I still went to the school. But I lived in Salford time and go back. There's probably about three or four kids I remember in Salford. So you got a lot of shit there. Do you know what I mean? Because it was unusual, but like I said, people were people. Everybody was just working class people. There was that definite line of we're talking about politics now. He was Labour and he was Conservative. Now the lines are crossed out, and no one knows what's what. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a lot harder nowadays.
What was it like there, Trev, in the sort of the community? Was it like the people look out for each other and
Mate,
you know what I mean? One of them ones.
You know that old cliche, you said you could go out and leave your front door open.
Yeah.
That's what people did. You went out, you left your front door open, and you could go next door and you laugh. Listen, I've no qualms, mate. I'm 62. I've no qualms about my age saying it. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't bother me. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, I mean, obviously, whenever I shave, but obviously a lot younger than Scotty. You know what I mean?
You don't look at that. I've told you this before. You don't look a day over 61.
But it's really funny, you know, when we do stuff with Jay, they always go, "Is that Jay's dad?"
I know.
Or then they go, "Is that Trev's dad?" And they go, "Yeah, that's right."
That's worse. Yeah. But it's,
The community. The community was a community, mate. And you know, like I'm 62 now. I've still got mates. And we still meet up, obviously, before lockdown, mate, who we've known since school since she was 6 and 7.
Yeah.
You know, even in Salford, do you know what I mean? Kids who grew up within, you know, I don't really do that Facebook thing, really. I never know, but I'm Twitter, as Jay's on, but I'm Twitter. So people will sat me down on Twitter, do you know what I mean? And it's like, oh my God, I've not seen you for ages, or because obviously the jobs that I've done and people know you and blah, blah, blah. But communities were communities, mate. They were, you know, I've just started doing a lot of writing. Lockdown has been quite positive for me because obviously, you know, as you know, I'm an actor. And so I've just really got into writing stuff. I've obviously, because I do comedy, but I've been writing comedy, but not really got into serious writing as such. So I've written a couple of monologues, and I'm in the process now of doing my first draft of my first play.
Nice.
Good stuff, mate. Got a couple of questions here, Trevor. Simon Preston, I think you know Simon, part of the Jamaican setup. He says, Trev, did you grow up with an English culture or Jamaican culture?
Jamaican.
Jamaican.
So when I say Jamaican, so I was Jamaican when I'm in Moss Side, and when I'm in Salford, I'm English, aren't I? Because dual heritage. So,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I've always been black. I've always been a black man. So, and that's the way that it is. Do you know what I mean? Society sees you that way. You know, I got called the N-word when I was 6. So straight away, your path's defined, isn't it, already? Society puts you in that thing where you are. It's like if you're Irish and someone goes, "You're Paddy this," and it's like, "Oh, well, I'm Irish." Or you're Scot, you're Jock, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, always, because obviously my roots were taught. My biological father is strictly Jamaican, from St. Anne's, which Simon would know. Clarendon, Kingston, all my family was from there, you know what I mean? Like my auntie was, I think she was the first woman who had a Caribbean, like, cafe in Stockton Street in Moss Side, you know what I mean? And my uncle was the first black club owner to the fact that he owned the Reno. Everyone knows about the Reno, so, and that was in Moss Side. But again, it was great because from a political standpoint, they obviously wanted to control black people. So to have their own club was sound. If you went into Manchester, you know what I mean, Scott? If you went into Manchester, there was 5 of us and we're all black kids. They'd let 4 of you go through and then they go, "Sorry, mate, I'm full." There's a 5th one. And you'd be like, "What?" Well, I know. Because there was a quota. There's a quota. Do you know what I mean? So you knew if us all went out to the club together and they let me and Jay in and then not you, well, we wouldn't go in because we're not leaving our mate outside.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what I mean?
Don't know. You don't know me and Scotty that well, then.
Yeah, Scotty, see that now on.
Oh, wait, not even like, I'll bell you tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of my heritage,
right under the bus.
In terms of my heritage of my country, yeah. So you adapt. You know what I mean? You adapt, and like you say, in Salford back in them days, mate, there was a lot of black people. You know what I mean? Like, so my roots was always every weekend over the bridge. I walk over the bridge. You know Harry Ramsden's, which is a road now. So there's a bridge there, right further on, behind the back of Harry Ramsden. We used to walk over there back into Hume, back over to see my mates. You know what I mean? And yeah.
Good stuff. Shout out to that United family. Seeing them in the comments as well. Shout out to Dave as well, Dave Pritt, who's there, and a few of the others as well. Just going through some of the comments. Crimson Kate, yes. Thanks for supporting the channel as always, Joe Swarbrick. Trevor, you mentioned there about sort of going out and music as well, and that sort of brings us nicely onto the album. You picked out an album from this year that stands out for you. Just explain why the album it is, which album it is, sorry, and why you've chosen it.
So you got to remember, right? So I'm 13 then. You know what I mean? Like Afro, believe it or not. Afro, flair, smart, boom. So in Moss Side, you were just part of the crew. But then when you're in Salford and you're sticking out, I was Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? And because you could drop the shapes, you could drop some shapes. Like we used to go to the Willows, you know what I mean? The Conjuring, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Back in the day, the Conjuring was down like Low Broughton. The Willows, obviously, where the rugby place was, when my auntie used to live. So Jackson 5 for me, well, Michael Jackson was big outlet. My music was my therapy. You know, my background wasn't a great one. Stepfather wasn't really, really nice man. You know what I mean? Like, so music was a great therapy for me. You know what I mean? Sort of thing until, you know, like I said, when I went to live with my gran brought me up. So Jackson was great. I used to love the Jacksons, like obviously Jackson 5. And it was mad because like in 72, a year later, I went over to see him at Bellevue. You know what I mean? Which was just surreal. First time I've seen him. And I have a laugh because I think my claim to fame is that I've seen Michael Jackson at every colour. You know what I mean?
The full spectrum.
You know,
the Pantone tour.
Yeah.
I can't actually see, but I've got a painting on my wall. I don't know if you can't actually see it. Don't know if I can move this. And when the mates come, they love it. It's an old painting. It's an old painting. Can you see it? Can you see it there?
Yeah, sort of. If you
maybe you can see a bit of it. You see the outline there.
Yeah.
But that's like 12 inspirational. It's like 12 inspirational black men to me growing up. And Michael's on there when he was black. And it's funny. My mate's come in, he's got his afro, he's back, and he go, "Is that Michael Jackson?" Yeah. Any prostate on it, Marvin Gaye, all that people, you know. But yeah, so the Jackson 5 for me, man, it was the buzz, and I was the only one who had their albums. Do you know what I mean? On the estate, in the street. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so it was great. The album was called Maybe Tomorrow. The other third album, the three albums, but the one I was Maybe Tomorrow, which was great. It's been more of a bit ballady, you know what I mean? And like you say, I've always stuck with him, and luckily a year later, managed to go to Bellevue. I think the ticket was about £1, you know, £2 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But at King's Hall, Bellevue.
It's mad the acts that have played in Bellevue though. Like I think Bob Marley's played there, Rolling Stones have played there.
Elton John, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, yes. Massive. I think it was King's Hall. I think it probably could hold something on about 10,000 back in the day, I think, something like that. Do you know what I mean? It was huge, mate. It was huge. But yeah, it was good. 71 was just like you say, because obviously Man United, you know what I mean, the music, you know, you get into films. Then I remember the big thing, because obviously I think the genre at the time was always like westerns or something, you know what I mean, and cowboys and Indians, and there was like a film called Soldier Blue. It was about slaughter of like cavalrymen. Do you know what I mean? From obviously indigenous Americans. And then there was one that I was into called A Man Called Horse, which is loosely based a bit. Remember Dancing with Wolves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dancing with Wolves is probably still the same synopsis, where this guy gets kidnapped by a load of Native Americans, and then so like becomes one of them. Do you know what I mean? And this Man Called Horse, it was like his rite of passage to become one of these Indians. You know what I mean? And they hung him, mate, from the teepee by these ropes from his chest. You know what I mean? Like, and we were kids, were all like, obviously not prosthetic chest. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was just, I think that's the main thing, because everything was sort of like happening, and you're 13, you're a teenager, aren't you? You know, you're getting into stuff, you're going into town. Market Street was just like unbelievable, nothing like it's like now. Where the Arndale was, that was all shops, buses on each side of the road, Underground Market, do you know what I mean? And, mate, great. And then obviously you know, Salford again, that was a different adventure. You know, I'd be out with mates in Salford, you know what I mean? Cross Lane Market and stuff like that, and you know, where the precinct is, You know, that was a market before the precinct was built. You know what I mean? And then where my gran lived, 10 minutes away, that was Old Trafford, over the swing bridge.
Did you ever bump into your mates did you ever bump into your Moss Side mates when you were out with Salford?
Yeah.
Was it all right? You didn't have to be peacemaker, did you?
In town, yeah. When was in town? If it's one of them, you know, it's really weird, you know what I mean? Because obviously it was a bit of like the apprehension, I think, when two sort of like cultures meet, coming face to face, you know, about 4, 5, 6 gangs of lads. You know what I mean? So you got white lads walking up Market Street and you got black lads walking up Market Street, you know what I mean? And then, but then you'd have, within the black lads, within the black group, you'd have white lads as well. Because they were from Moss Side, and then you'd have me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So then, but so you'd be a bit apprehensive first of all. Then you got close, you'd be like, "Oh, all right, Trev, yeah, all right, Scotty, all right, Jay." Do you know what I mean? Where I suppose it would be like the Magnificent Seven. Dun, 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 dun. You know what I mean? Thinking, oh, it's gonna kick right off here. You know what I mean? But yeah. Man, it was mad. You know, we were kids, weren't we? We were just kids on an adventure, you know what I mean? And like Saturday, you'd always go into town. Saturday was the one going into town. You know, Piccadilly Gardens. That was the garden, mate. It was a garden. Do you know what I mean? You get there with your old, well, it wasn't a ghetto blast. It was just like a cassette tape. Cassette tapes. Playing music, man. You know what I mean?
But you must have been like, so you were what, 18 towards the end of the 70s, early 80s, were you? Is that right?
Yeah.
So obviously with I don't know if you're big into hip hop music, but obviously the massive change, especially in Manchester, the music cultures and stuff that were happening when you were growing up, Trevor. What was that like, especially on my side as well, with Carnival, sound clashes and stuff?
Yeah, because you remember Carnival's been there for like bloody 50 odd years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your fella come, you know what I mean, with biological dad, the Rimrush and my aunties, they were obviously integral in starting obviously Carnival up, you know what I mean? Carnival was just a mismatch. Like you see Notting Hill now and all that, but that was Moss Side. It didn't matter what culture, white, black, Asian, so what? Everyone was just out having the buzz. People would go, you know, like, for example, your mum would start cooking on a Thursday night, Jay. You know what I mean? And whether it be chicken, whether it be bread, whether it be fritters, whether it be anything. Do you know what I mean? You know, cakes. And then you'd go to the carnival, you have your own little space. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? That your table would be out, your decorating table, that'd be out. Do you know what I mean? Like, and people could pass by, how much is that? Yeah, 10 pence for that, or 50 pence for that, or do you know what I mean? And it continued like that until obviously it become commercialized, you know what I mean? And you had to obviously get a license, stuff like that. In terms of the music, yeah, hip hop music wasn't my genre, apart from probably NWA. When I first got into NWA, they were the leaders, you know what I mean, type of thing. But then he told it from how it was their perspective. But you got to remember, you know what I mean, what people sometimes get mixed up, that the black perspective in America is different from the black perspective in UK.
Yeah.
The racism obviously was vile in the UK, but in the USA, triple that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, although we've had it here, bad, you know what I mean? But, you know, it is never been to the excessive like as it is in the USA. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Although we have a close affinity to the States. I mean, I do a bit of stuff for Black History Month, but I get really annoyed when all we do is look to America. Just look to America for Black History models. It's like,
yeah.
What about the Black History from the UK? Do you know what I mean? Type of thing. But I understand, because when we were growing up, we didn't really have any black role models. Pele, like, you know what I mean? Music, Muhammad Ali. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the kids now are different. I mean, like I said, we you know, refer to earlier on just for the crap. Look at Marcus Rashford now. So if you're a young kid now growing up at 7 and 8 years and 9 years of age, if someone says to me, who's your favourite footballer or who's your role model? You're going to get what? You're going to get at least 60% of kids saying Rashford, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You think so?
You know, that was the thing. I work at like a charity, and we were doing things with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was saying this. I said, "Why have you put pictures of like Mandela and Malcolm X up and stuff like these people? As amazing as they are, Malcolm X sounds like an X-Man to a fucking. Do you know what I mean? They have no context for who these people are. They need you need these black heroes that have the context of their day-to-day lives that they need to be celebrating, and that's what we should be doing in our wider circle. So it was great seeing Marcus lift the. I mean, if you give a toss about the personality of the year award, what did they win? The experts panel.
Yeah, the special panel award, wasn't it? It was.
Crowbarred it in, didn't it?
Hey, come on, we've got to give him something. So, well, we've run out of. Let's get him. Let's get the Scotty and Jay.
Do you know what it reminded me of? It's remember when Mourinho gave Scott McTominay award like 5 minutes before the awards were announced. He created the managers award.
Created it.
Yeah, because he didn't want the goalkeeper getting the only award because it made him look bad. It felt a bit like that. But like you're saying, it's great because you're right. You've got Marcus, you've got other people as well in the black community. Even at a local level, Trevor, you'll both know this. When I was a reporter, people like, Mothers Against Violence in South Manchester, Patsy Mackay, people like that, Arima Bell, those to me sort of, they are heroes, they've changed that community. They've been a great example to people. They've made a difference. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you can look up to them as well because it wasn't easy and they've made that change and, you know what I mean? And they've done it and people should be able to look at them and go, that's someone I can aspire to. So who's made a difference on a sort of local level. And I think we need a bit more of that sometimes because, it's great to acknowledge the Nelson Mandelas and the Martin Luther Kings. But when you can look at the Marcus Rashfords and even people in your own community, it hits home a lot more, doesn't it? Because you think that's someone who's living in my life and who's achieved what I want to achieve and who's made a difference like what I want to make a difference for.
I agree. And I think it goes right across the board now. I mean, like I say, I've been involved in the Black Lives Matter movement for a long, long time, since 2012. I don't politicise the movement. I don't agree with all that politicising the movement. I want to be able to walk down the street with Scotty and people just go and say, look at them two lads. You don't go, who's that black lad with Scotty?
Yeah.
Or who's that white lad with Trev? And majority of black people who I know who support the Black Lives Matter movement, it's because of that. It's about equality. It's not about politicising it. It's about defunding the police. The average Joe in the street are not interested in all that. They just want equal opportunity, equal rights. But what is amazing is like the transformation now of so many people getting involved with that. You've never seen so many white people getting involved with black civil rights, for want of a better word. When I did a Zoom about 3 or 4 months ago, and on it was 200 people, right? And of the 200 people, I bet there's probably about maybe 70 people who were white. And all questions, we got split into different groups, and all questions were being fired at. And I was like, well, a specialist because obviously I teach about racism and different like that in schools and blah, blah, blah. And I asked the question to one of the couple of white kids in there, and I said, why is it that white people really want to get involved? Even on the lines of Australia, who's there, racism is rife when it comes to Indigenous. Do you know what I mean? And they're the massive Black Lives Matter. And I'm thinking, what? After what they go on with? And you know what they said? They went, because we live in that digital world now, and they see it. You pick up your phone, Scotty gets mugged. You pick up your phone, it's on your phone within 10 seconds. You, Jay, do whatever, go through a red light, knock someone down, it's on your phone. Yeah. So people saw it. People saw the tragedy of black people who were getting killed, do you know what I mean, indiscriminately by the old bill or whatever, do you know what I mean? And went, oh, wow. So that movement now from becoming non-racist to anti-racist is a big thing. It's a big thing. We've got, like I said, to us, Jay, we get on, people get on, we get on. Everybody wants to get on. But there's always going to be them agencies amongst us that don't want us to get on. Black, white, Asian, whatever you want to say. Do you know what I mean? But the digital world has just brought loads of people together, and it's just like people are not standing for crap now, I don't think.
Do you think that's been the positive that's come from this year then, Trev? Obviously, the pandemic and everything has been fucking, how it's been handled has been absolute hell. But do you think with the Black Lives Matter and the sort of the global protest that we had of it, do you think because a lot of people were in lockdown and they had the time to sort of dedicate to seeing this sort of stuff and invest more time and energy into protesting, is that obviously that's some sort of silver lining that we can take from this shit show of a year?
I concur completely, Scotty. without a doubt, reiterate everything you've just said there. Because normally because remember, this isn't like new of the black people getting whacked. Do you know what I mean? Indiscriminately by police. Do you know what I mean? It's not. But people were at home, like you said, they were in lockdown, they were at home. Like you say, you know what I mean? We're joking, but people were exhausting Netflix. They were exhausting the news. You know, they were exhausting this and that. And then you see it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. So then it's suddenly, you know, it's come. I mean, look at not the Black Lives Matter, but every protest that we've seen, you know, whether it be anti-lockdown, anti-vax, If there wasn't a lockdown, would any of those movements be as huge as what they were? I don't think they were, because people are at work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But the digital age is a massive age where things are instant, you know, and I think that can be a positive, obviously, and a negative. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, brother. But yeah, without a doubt, what you're saying there, Scotty, if we were in lockdown, would it be as big as it was? Would any protest?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be. You know, back in the days when we were kids, you know what I mean, I'd ban the bomb marches and, you know, stop the Nazis and stuff like that. Like, we only heard of it because there was posters in the street. You know what I mean? Or someone might have paid X amount to put an advert in a newspaper. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't, you know, I couldn't ring you up and go, hey, Scotty, there's so-and-so here going on tomorrow. Because you wouldn't know about him probably until it's gone or the day before, and then you'd have to leg it round to your house. But then you might be doing something. But now it's all organised, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a good question in the comments from Tony Blissett. He's asking, do you agree, Trevor, or don't you agree, Trevor, that Black Lives Matter did more in one weekend than Kick It Out has ever done? What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, and do you know what's really hurts me about that? Because, as you know, when an actor, you have to supplement your income. So I was very, very lucky to get my coaching badges. So I worked at Man City for 6 years and worked at Man United for 20 years as a coach. And I used to do a lot of work when Kick It Out first started. I used to do a lot of work with them. And if I'm brutally honest, no, they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough. You know what I mean? There were scenarios that come up even before this. They didn't do enough. But, yeah, all of a sudden, bang, it was Black Lives Matter. Just went, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And like you say, not to politicize it all, but because of what the equality. And that's a sad thing, especially when it comes to terms in football. You know what I mean? Someone asked me the question today, do I think people should carry on kneeling? And you know what I've said about it? I've said, if you want to kneel, kneel. If you don't want to kneel, don't kneel. People not necessarily kneeling doesn't mean you don't support. It doesn't mean, but some people like to have a visual. Like to show their visual support. Yeah. So when I hear stuff about football fans booing, you're like, what are you booing for? Why are you booing? Because you're just showing your ignorance then, and your subliminal inherent racism. For me, that's how I interpret it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think, you know, listen. I know footballers, right, who were lighter than me, who were light-skinned, who were dual heritage, right? You don't shout about the black. But if something happens where appertains to their blackness, they will be vociferous about it. Yeah. But because they don't shout all the time, doesn't mean they're not black. If you don't kneel, it doesn't mean that you're against Black Lives Matter. It doesn't mean that. Do you know what I mean? But I think people should have a choice. If you want to stand, you know, people stood. I mean, the Grand Prix, there's a bit of a stick about the Grand Prix in it. A lot of people, I think Hamilton and about 3 or 4 others knelt, and other people just stood. But when they interviewed the people who stood, they said, "Yeah, we're with Hamilton. Why didn't you kneel?" Well, it was about a matter of choice.
Yeah. What do you think, Trev? Because just to touch on, like, when we're talking about racism in football, me and Jay spoke about this a lot on the show. Is when the likes of Good Morning Britain or TalkSport, and they get these certain figureheads up to talk about what racism is like in football and what should be done about it. And I know Jay's a massive fan of John Barnes, so I wanted to get your opinion on why is John Barnes pushed in front of a camera all the time, and to give these sort of ludicrous views, or do you by any chance agree with some of the stuff that John Barnes says?
I can see Jay's face there. You're not very good at disguising that, Scotty. That was just
Mate, that ship has sailed. I don't think anyone who's ever seen any of my tweets will think for one second I buy to what John Barnes is saying. But go on, Trevor.
Do you know what? Do you know what, mate? I think this is the problem you get with John Barnes, in my opinion, is quite simple. When the Everett scenario kicked off at Liverpool, he didn't say shit. He didn't say shit. He didn't come out and say shit. Why is that? My opinion, so I'm not open to libel, my opinion was, why? Quite simple. Because he still thought he'd be able to get a job at Liverpool as one of the coaches and and blah, 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 blah. And because John Barnes has seen the most articulate of black footballers, which fits the government-led rhetoric, they'll go to him. He's their go-to.
Sure.
He's their go-to. So for me, no. And I speak, we have the conversation, have a conversation with black lads, have a conversation with white lads, whatever, about Barnes. And they all say, well, he's not the voice of me. He don't speak on my behalf. And people don't, people like me, my Jamaican, do you know what I mean? Know about him. Simon will tell you about him, other people. John Barnes came from, you talk about an affluent family. His dad was a colonel, like an ambassador to the Jamaican High Commission. John Barnes we'd go to like Scotty, you're from Salford, are you?
No, from Longside.
Oh, Longside, right. So you'd go to Levy Secondary School, Spurley or whatever.
Yeah, that's where I went to Spurley, yeah.
Right, so you got Spurley, right? John Barnes would be going to Alderley Heads Grammar School for Boys. You know what I mean? You tell me, John Barnes to me is like the Eminem of rap. You don't grow up in that. Not Eminem, sorry. Kanye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not for me, mate. It ain't for me. But they always go to him. It's like every issue, John Barnes. I'm thinking,
it's really frustrating because it pains me a lot, Trev. Because when I was a kid, even though he's a Scouser, when I was little, I looked up to John Barnes as someone who was dealing with that racism on the pitch.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's so. Even though, obviously, I was a United fan, and he wasn't someone I sort of admired as a football. I looked at him and thought he's taking a lot of grief, and he's handling it, and he's showing him he's letting his football do the talking. And then when it seems, and it's not even necessarily. Sometimes you spoke about his silence on the Suarez thing, and I get where you're coming from. But I even heard him comparing racism when that was kicking off to people calling Steven Gerrard a Scouser to racism, and then I heard him saying when Jadon Sancho spoke out about racism, he had to go at him and said, you want to try going in the communities where people who aren't rich are suffering racism. And I thought, hang on a minute, this is a teenager, a young black lad who's speaking out against racism, doing a good thing, and you're having a dig at him. And like you say, TalkSport or BBC or whoever will wheel out John Barnes, and I could literally throw a stone out my window, and it's someone who'd be better equipped to talk about racism than John Barnes, and who would
absolutely. But he has that, like you say, he has that middle class. You see about him. He speaks with a silver tongue, silver spoon in his mouth. You know what I mean? And there's something like you said. I was like you, and I think every black man was like that when John Barnes first came out. And irrelevant who you supported, but because he was getting racist against, you had that affinity with him.
Yeah.
Empathy. Sorry, you had that empathy with him, and you would support them because that's what you were getting. But now not for me, mate. And there's something like I said, he should do a lot of work with kick it out with him. Do you know what I mean? I could be sat in classrooms with him and talk about this and that lot. And I always remember once, and one kid said to me, I can't even remember his answer, but a kid said to me, "But sir, how do you cope with racism?" And my answer was to that was, "What you say now? It's about you in the moment. It's about in the moment. You might wake up in a bad mood, right? You get in your car, someone will cut you up. You get off in his road rage, isn't they? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You might go up in a good mood. Someone cuts you up in your car. Yeah, whatever. So for me, there's no right or wrong way to deal with racism. It's about you and your choice in the moment. But what I've always pushed for, and I'm glad they started doing it, is that players walk off the pitch. But then I get that. People say to me, well, why didn't he walk off the pitch years ago? And the simple answer, my answer is, so when Clyde Best, right, one of the first black footballers, Paul Reaney, played for Leeds, you know what I mean, started playing, and they got racially abused, they couldn't walk off the pitch. Because, you know why? They couldn't afford to walk off the pitch. They couldn't afford to walk off the pitch. They were limited numbers. They were limited. Now, if you look at the Premier League, they must, I think it's something like 27% of the Premier League or something are black players, right? Who, not their fault, but money, their wages start around 40, 50 grand a week. So if I'm playing for you and I get racially abused and I walk off the pitch and that club wants to sack me, well, sack me then. Because I've accumulated enough money to be okay. and do whatever what I could do, or I go and play for another team. But back in the day of them lads, even including Barnes and them people, they couldn't walk off the pitch. They were a minority. I remember going to United. Listen, no club is without racist. No club. There is racism within every club. Let's not be naive to think that. I remember going to United when I was a kid, and you'd hear them racist comments, and you couldn't do shit because you were just you on your own with your another black mate, and the rest of you were white mates, and the rest of the crowd behind you were giving it to the opposition players, the N-word, you black bastards, this and that, What are you going to do? You can't do anything. But it's only when you get older and you see more, and black players now are in a stronger position. They're in a stronger position now to oppose that and go, no, I'm not having it. We saw it, didn't we? When was it PSG? It was PSG, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Besiktas.
Right, and
the Istanbul, was it the Istanbul game? Was it?
Do you know what I mean? And that was a fourth official saying whatever. You know, no, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. But yeah, but like I said, going back to when I was a kid, man, we never had none of that. Well, that's what it was about, but we didn't have it in our area.
Yeah.
If I fought with you, Scott, it's probably because you nipped me ball. Do you know what I mean? Or something, or I don't know. You might have called me, I don't know. I wasn't fat then. But you know what I mean? You could have called me a fat twat or something. Do you know what I mean? But it wasn't, there was not, there was, you know, that's just, you know, in my experience, I'm not saying it wasn't there, but I'm saying racism really, you only discovered as a black kid about racism when you came out of that area.
Yeah, I read. I've read a Carla's book, Natives. Is a really good read. Yes, and he says in that he goes, he wasn't because I think he's a dual heritage, isn't it? I think his mum's white, and he goes he had no self-awareness of his blackness until somebody else actually pointed it out to him, and I think that's a lot of it. You know, until someone points out the difference to you. I mean, you're a bit more better place than I am. That you know. For all your care, you're the same. You're the same as everybody else, aren't you? But when somebody else from the outside of the community, you points it at you.
I moved to when I got married. I lived in Neil Green. Moved to Neil Green. That was in the 80s. And Neil Green, my ex-wife, she was a nurse, and the only other black people were at the hospital. It was me. I was obviously just black. I would work at the hospital, but there was a doctor and a nurse, and the other nurse was my auntie, who was black, right? So for seven or 8 years, right? Obviously you got the stairs because you worked in the avenue, but no one said anything apart from there was one tried to be a bit smart. Well, I used to box at the time there, so he'd see me out at 5 o'clock in the morning doing my road work, you know what I mean? And then he'd be trying to sort of like befriend me, sort of thing, and I'd be like, "Don't speak to me now, mate." Before he was talking about the monkeys coming out, you know, they're driven past our house, right? And there's me and my two mates from my side and doing some work. Mate was a joiner, and the bloke went dead loud and he went, "Well, see, the monkeys are out." Right. And I was like 24 then, 24. You know what I mean? I'm like, "You fucking what?" You know what I mean? And he was like 40 odd, the geezer. So we lived in that avenue for 7 years. My son, he was then 5, and a new family came in. And they lived opposite, and they came in. I remember it as if it was today. At 2:10, right? They moved in, and at 4:15 they were playing out in the street. My boy was one of them, and the kid. My son came in. He went, "Dad, that girl over there just called me a black P, as in Asian P. Dog if I don't really want to say it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pig." And I went, "What?" And he went, "She's called me a black pig." And I looked out, and there's this little girl, probably about 6, mate. And I was like, right, just ignore it. Right? So the next day now, I'm out, and I come back from my run. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and the blokes going out to work. So I've come in. I used to run with pads on and bandages on my hands. You know what I mean? Like, so he went, "All right, mate. Are you a boxer?" I went, "Done a bit. Why?" He went, "No, it's no. You don't have to be a bit." I went, "I'll tell you why I'm being a bit funny with you, mate." I said, "You've been in this avenue, not even 24 hours. We've been in here 8 years. My son has never experienced racism. He experienced it for the first time today because your daughter called him a black pig." And he went, I said, "I'm not blaming your daughter, mate. I'm blaming you."
Yeah.
Because you've moved in, you've looked through your bay window and seen across the road a kid of colour. and you give that comment, and your poor daughter has heard that and reiterated it. Because I've been working in the education system, you know what I mean? You both done it, and you know, mate, Scotty, you and I grew up as black and white kids, like you say, we don't have no sense of it. We're just mates. You get to secondary school, like you just said, someone will point out the difference. Scotty, what are you doing with him? He's black. Tell me what are you doing with him? He's white. And then suddenly it's like, they show us the difference. Racism isn't born, it's taught.
Yeah.
Because we're getting on. People, we know black friends, we got black mates, we got white mates, we got all different good mates. But it's about the individuals, mate. And that's why I said in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, how it's pushing, you know, it has transformed that. It's not good. It's not all right just to be non-racist, saying, "Oh, I'm not a racist." You got to be anti-racist. So when people make that comment about you've got to go for a minute, my mate's white. You know what I mean? I don't have it. I teach it in schools. You can't use the word around me. You can't use any word around me. Even black brothers can't use it as a term of endearment around me. It's not happening.
I think that was quite a refreshing thing because, like I said, there's been instances of high-profile racism both sides of the Atlantic for as long as we've all been alive. But I think what was different about this time was that a lot of white people who felt they didn't have the voice or that they were ill-equipped to talk out about it actually were doing more research and stuff. And I know you know Simon Naylor, don't you, Trev, from 50/50? And I think and like Simon's a white bloke, and he was talking to me and said, what could we do about these certain things? And he put like a list of books that he was reading and then highlighting that to his friends and stuff. So it was really good, sort of that coming from, because it's all right, black people, you're the ones getting persecuted. You're bound to start talking about, listen, this isn't right, but you need support from the side that's, or the people that are actually doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's what was different this time around. Yeah, Simon. I mean, I know Simon well. Like, and we had a conversation. It was quite interesting because as an actor, I've applied for a certain festival for a number of years and never ever even got through the door. And obviously, Twitter comes about, and then we're showing pictures. It's like, here's a cast for this festival, da da da. And I just put flippantly, very diverse casting as usual, because there was no people of colour on it. Do you know what I mean? And mate, I couldn't believe the storm. Boom, boom, boom. He went mad on Twitter, and people were going, and then to be fair to the organisers, they went, you're right. What do we do about that? But what you've also got to understand from a black perspective as well, right? 9 out of 10 black people don't want white people just to give us the job because they has to tick the box as a black person. Because it's going overboard. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no. If that person's right for the job, he happens to be black, he happens to be white, he happens to be Asian, fine. People talk about positive discrimination. Mate, don't just give me the job now because you have to, you know what I mean? Well, we got to do this, we got to do that because it's no, you don't. No, you don't. Yeah. If it happens in society, they may laugh about all the commercials. People keep about the commercials. I'm not going to Tesco again. Black commercial. Get a grip, you idiot.
That's the most ridiculous argument. We have this almost every year. Do you remember the Christmas advert where it was the black family bouncing on the trampoline outside their house? And people
people celebrate Christmas.
You what? Sorry.
It's like you're right. It's like, what do I mean? Do black people not celebrate Christmas?
I know, and it was like, oh my god, you get triggered by an advert.
It's about society. It's about society. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right, Scotty. The movement has got bigger. It's got bigger. Listen, people asked me a question today. This was BBC, and he said to me, "Do you think racism will ever stop?" And on heart, no. It'll always be there. As long as there's black people, it'll always be there. Because you always got that minority who don't want that and are inbred and they won't change their train of thought. I've worked alongside racists, and the guy, he saw me as a racist. That's fine. I'm cool with that because I know, and he knows. It's not a problem. We're not going to go chicken together. But if you got something to say, discuss it. Don't be talking to me, go around the corner and then call me M-word. And then my mate Johnny says, so-and-so just called it because that's just going to cause hassle. If you want to be, it's freedom of choice, mate. You can be whatever you want to be. But when you start threatening it, when you start trying to unstabilize, you know, scenarios and stuff like that, no, that's when it becomes a bit of a shit. But, you know, Muhammad Ali had it perfectly, going back to one of my heroes. You know, when he was a kid, you know, his dad told him that his dad said when he was young, when he was older, racism will be over. And now his dad's telling him that racism will be over. And then Muhammad Ali's telling his kids. And so you got to be realistic. You got to be realistic. And you know, it's not about having people. I hate that label. You got a chip on your shoulder. What the fuck's that? No, because I'm vociferous about it. I've got a chip on my shoulder. No, that's a racist slur within itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's always appertains to people of color. You know what I mean? You say, oh, you got the. No, it's not about that. It's just being forward and saying this is what is. You know what I mean?
You usually hear that sort of thing about you've got a chip on your shoulder when, for example, I've had that when someone cracks a joke, a racist joke or racially motivated joke, and you don't laugh or you don't find it funny.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so you got a chip on your shoulder, and it's like, well, no. Do you know what I mean? Just because I'm not going to accept that doesn't mean I got a chip on my shoulder. You know what I mean? And what you know? Sorry, but what I hope is, I think you're right, Trevor. I don't think racism will ever going to go away. I just don't. Me and Scotty have spoken about this, and no doubt you've had the same conversations as well. I hope my son doesn't have to go through, or my kids for that matter, some of the things that I put up with and thought were almost at times. I look back and I think I accepted, and I wish I hadn't have. You know, like not just the overt stuff, but the subtle things. You know, like the jokes and stuff. And I've had it in the workplace. You know, little jokes, and there's been times when I've just bit my tongue, and I wish I hadn't have. I wish I'd have challenged people a bit more and said, you know what, that's not funny, and I'm not fucking having it.
No,
Do you know what I mean? And
So
it's little things like that.
Going back to the football scenario, that's the analogy. You had to.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, you wouldn't have a job.
Yeah, you're right, mate. I've been in situations where,
and that's the word. But now people aren't doing that now. Well, if I haven't got a job, fuck you, I haven't got a job.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll go and get a job, but I'm not having you say this, I'm not having you say that. And that's why I say about the movement between non-racist, anti-racist is bigger. And that's the positive out of Black Lives Matter. Like I say, you know, forget the political side, but that is it, because we've all got family, right, from different cultures, you know what I mean, who have said shit and people haven't reacted, you know what I mean? It's now it's a case of like, no, listen, let's not be within the confines of your own house, you can say whatever you want to say, that's your business. But when you go out to public forum, don't be slandering someone because you think he's LBGQ, do you know what I mean? Because making jokes about them, because that person might be that. That person might be non-binary. He might have a relative who's like that. He might have a relative who's black. He might have a relative who's white. You know what I mean? So you've got to just think a little bit, haven't you? You've got to think a little bit about it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, going like I said to me, it's weird because like I said, when we were kids, you know what I mean? In our areas, we didn't have that. But obviously within Salford, it was a bit different. It was a bit different. You know what I mean? But I've been coming out when I was in the army. And it came out, and Salford was on a pub called the Keystone, one of the hardest pubs in Salford. And my mate was from Salford, so we've gone into the pub to meet his dad. And as we've gone in, his dad's got 2 pints of Guinness on the thingy. And as we walked in, this bloke went, you look around and he's like, what's he doing there, the black bastard? And I just stopped me dead like that. Before I could say anything, my mate went, what did you fucking say? And this old bloke with the cap on went, what are you doing here, the black bastard? Fucking get back to where he comes from. I'll tell you what, I'll fuck him off in the army. So my mate went, you know what, you twat. I always remember it. You twat. This is where he's from. And he's fucking just done 8 years in the fucking army. And the bloke went, oh, to appease it. Oh, right, he's one of us. Yeah, get him a pint, Tommy. I went, I'll put your pint on. You know what I mean? Because you just don't get it. You just don't get it, you know. But listen, there's no right way or wrong way to fight it for me. When you just do it as you want to do it, mate. And you know, I don't challenge anybody who takes a choice to do it the way that they deem that they want to do it. It's up to them. You know what I mean?
Trev, you hit the nail on the head as always. Listened to you for years. We could do never have a short conversation with Trev whenever I chat to Trev, me and Trev, mate. Honestly, I'm like, Trev, come and have a chat. How's it going, mate? Next thing you know, an hour later, we're still chatting. I'm just going to go through some of the comments, mate, because quite a lot of people have been jumping in the comments. The Mank Made channel, who we know, says, you're one of the few people I know who's a genuine inspiration, Trev. Ross Murphy, who's a friend of the channel, says Trev speaks more sense than John Barnes does. I mean, that's true. I don't know if it's much of a compliment, but I get where it's coming from. Hey, I think most people speak more sense than John Barnes. Miss Man United gives you a round of applause. Good to see she's watching. That's my missus. Crimson Kate says, spot on, Trev. Compelling listening. And Harrison B, Ross Murphy, Grant Carr, and a few others as well getting involved and just saying, talking about John Barnes and you speaking a lot of sense. And it's been great. I mean, I thought we were going to be talking about Willie Morgan and Richard Harris.
Scotty's fault. Scotty took me down that road. I'm sorry. Listen, that's really nice comments that I get. I really appreciate that of the comments that you've got, man. But yeah, it was great. I mean, as Scotty probably Jay will tell you, because I'm a big, when he invites me into the football, well, I'm not controversial. It's just my heartfelt opinion. But you know what I mean? It's like he said to me when he first did it, don't read any of the comments. Don't read any of the comments. So I get my mate to read it, and he goes, "Oh, Trev, you know what? I read this. You're getting hammered."
He comes on the channel, right? He comes on Straight for Panic, and he'll say, "Don't get me started on Mr. Paul Pogba," and then he'll speak about Paul Pogba for half an hour, or he'll go, "Don't get me started on Mr. Anthony Martial," and then that's it. Then he's away. But always good stuff, and he's and like he did tonight, he speak from the heart and the experience as well, and it's fascinating, mate. I could listen to that, and we'll have to get you on again, Trev.
No, listen,
definitely.
No, Scotty, I mean, because I know, Scotty, I know you've been asking me for ages, mate, but like I say, I've just been busy, you know what I mean, and doing whatever. But no, it's great. It's just a chat with the lads, isn't it? That's what it's about.
Yeah, this is what it's like.
Yeah,
it's just my opinion. Like I always reiterate, even when I'm doing football, it's about my opinion. I'm not there to change anybody else's opinion. It's just what it is. It's my opinion. Let's not fall out about it. You know what I mean? And just because I don't agree with what you say, can't be teamed as negative because that's my experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, but it's just the way that I am, mate. I wear me out. I'm fucking sometimes it gets me in trouble. Don't get me wrong.
There's one comment. There's one comment I want to say before we go. This was from Harrison B. He said, "Can't tell if Trev's tiny or if his door's just massive."
Hey, you know what? Hold on, listen. I've been on a diet.
Well, listen, Trev, that was great.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I'm going through my Benjamin Button phase.
You'll be my age soon, then. Trev, great having you on. Everyone knows where to find Trev. You can go and check him out. He's all over socials. That's been Scotty. I've been Motty. This has been Scotty and Motty with Trevor Dwyer-Lynch. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your support. And if you're not doing, make sure you subscribe. And we're back soon with the next one.
Right. Happy Christmas, Trev.
Happy Christmas.
See you as well, mate. We'll see you soon. And then we'll be back for the Christmas.